Cornell was started in the 1860s as a land-grant university and is the land-grant university for New York State. And that concept of the land-grant mission has evolved, of course, over the decades, so that I think about Cornell as the land-grant university to the world, that we have as our mission, as our passion, public service and the application of education and discovery to the public's needs.
Welcome to Truth and Truthiness. It's a great honor and pleasure to have Cornell President David Skorton on our show today. And I'd like to get right on with the questions. President Skorton, thank you so much.
If it's okay, may I call you Ken?
Yes.
Then you need to call me David.
I'm going to call you David.
Everyone does, and it's an honor for me to be on your show today. Thanks for giving me the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. I think you're going to enjoy it. I want to ask you about the founding principles of the university. As you know, the founding people said any student, any subject, and they talk about being able to do agricultural and philosophy and history together. Can you tell me what principles this university was founded with?
Well, that's one of those things I think about actually frequently. As you know, our colleague, our fabulous Vice President for University Communications, Tommy Bruce, in order to keep this in our mind, at the bottom of the university website is sort of a likeness of Ezra Cornell.
Right.
And right across the bottom it says, I would found an institution where any person can find instruction in any study. And it sounds a bit like a motto, but I mean it was revolutionary at the time to think about side by side having the classics and the thoughts of the great thinkers throughout the ages, liberal arts education, humanities, the arts, and at the same time have what might have been called a practical education. In those days, especially in the mid-19th century, where so many universities were founded, people were thinking about engineering, mechanical arts, agriculture,
right,
things that were necessary for, really survival and development of the country. So that combination of the liberal arts and these practical disciplines was the original idea. And here we are, 146 plus years later, with the same thing. Some of the very finest humanities departments in the country across the liberal arts, married with one of the top engineering schools, the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. So the realization of that vision is what you and I are living every day. It's interesting.
And it's gone down a century. I mean, it's gone down a decade.
It has. It really has.
Cornell's charter is a wonderful document. It is something that is too little regarded today, too little touted. The university could indeed do more with the fact that this charter is unique, it's path-breaking. It's what started out Cornell as an upstart, audacious, impudent, rash place. These are all words that were used about the university when it opened. The charter called for non-sectarianism, which you all know about. It called for student election of their own course of study. It called for faculty innovation. Excuse me. A.D. White wrote in the charter that he didn't want faculty who just recited knowledge from books, but he wanted faculty to teach in a lively fashion. He wanted experts. He wasn't concerned about degrees, which were not all that common anyway in those days. He expected that we would offer at Cornell empirical education based on a wonderful phrase called knowledge known, which means stuff in the library, books. So knowledge known, but also knowledge expanded from the laboratory, from the field, from research, and from observation. So this was going to be a new kind of education. The charter linked Cornell to the state of New York. It would educate students who had come through the New York State public school system. The charter called for teaching the branches of learning related to agriculture, to the mechanical arts, and including military tactics. Now, these are the things that the Morrill Land Grant Act specified. But then the charter says it is to promote the liberal and practical education of the industrial classes in pursuits and professions in life, while embracing other branches of science and knowledge as the trustees may deem useful. This is where everything else fits in. Students would be admitted without regard to their rank, by class, by previous occupation, or by locality. It was Andrew Dixon White who wrote in 1862 that his ideal university would be the place most highly prized instruction would be given to all students regardless of sex and color. It was Mr. Cornell who said in 1866, the motto, which we all know, "I would found an institution where any person can find instruction in any study." Person meant a student of any sex, or both sexes, and of any race, of any rank, class, previous occupation, or locality. But in those days, it was unusual, unique, and strange that Cornell would be open to this broad range of people. Most colleges in the eastern part of the United States in the 1860s educated males from families with enough money to afford to educate a son, not because of what he would learn, but because of the contacts he would make, the position he would assume in society. So it's the social context that was most important. So the question is, what did our founders mean by the word person? The training of women in all respects should be as thorough, as profound as that of men. The female, because she is entrusted with the education of the young, should have thorough knowledge. Any contempt for women, wrote May, and any denial to them of the full participation with our sex, men, of the advantage of education cripples their powers of self-respect and is the source of the direst evils. White talked about the people who would come to Cornell as male and female, and he always used the word scholars. Now, Ezra Cornell is a different story. Ezra Cornell, as a Quaker, believed in the inner beauty and sanctity of each individual and how we can all grow, and he recognized that the possibilities for women were relatively limited. So Mr. Cornell is looking for a way to help women improve their status. Among them, some of our best students, and I would never sanction anything which would infringe on their privileges, deprive them of their rights, or tend to degrade them in any manner. Ezra Cornell, on the other hand, said, "In some year, I hope to see 1,000 women at the university." So he's responding in a very interesting way. Some people worried about the effects of higher education on women. And in 1872, Dr. Edward Clark of the Harvard Medical School wrote a book called Sex in Education. It does not mean what you think. It means gender in this case. And he was concerned that if women studied at a coeducational institution as hard as men should be studying or did study, I don't know, all a woman's blood would rush to her head. Now, the consequence of that, according to Dr. Clark, is that with her blood in her head, her uterus would shrink. And therefore, said Dr. Clark and his advocates, we would end up stopping the population, which would be a very bad thing. But others, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, Matilda Jocelyn Gage, Lyman Fowler, the phrenologist, and Maria Mitchell, the astronomer, all said, this is the right thing to do. It's the right time to do it. And Mitchell said, if you don't do it soon, Harvard will do it before you do. At Cornell, person has always meant, for Mr. Cornell, those poor boys who didn't have a chance to go elsewhere, foreign students, state scholars, people of all economic backgrounds, and those of all races and genders. This is a legacy of which we should all be aware and very proud.
Are the connections between the medical school in New York City and upstate? I understand there's been a big loan and that there is a movement forward to try to connect those two campuses and perhaps you're including the medical school in Quatar too. What are the organizational, financial, even enabling technologies to make those connections strong?
Well, this is a big question, Ken. This is a very big question. So the heart and soul of Cornell, of course, is here in Ithaca. And 21,000 students and something on the order of 1,700 faculty 8,000 or so employees, and vast operation is going on here. But it's interesting though, the entire faculty complement across Cornell University, fully 40% are full-time medical faculty at Weill Cornell Medical College in New York City. So if we were all near each other, I mean, if you could walk 4 minutes to go from your office to the office of a colleague working in ultrasound in your field to at medical school, as opposed to 4 hours in a car or a bus, it would be much easier to think about ourselves all as one institution. It takes a little more imagination and push to think about it and make it real. But we are doing that. First of all, we have this wonderful fleet of campus-to-campus buses, which I enjoy taking. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity.
I like them.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
Secondly, the Department of Biomedical Engineering, I know you're familiar with, and other departments, but especially that one, I think has served as a bridge between the campuses, physician, say the surgical specialty, thinking about what might be facilitated or even made possible by a new technique, a new device, a new concept, and those folks are doing it up here in Ithaca. So those kind of connections are being made.
What about things like video conferencing and more sharing?
Absolutely. Let me use my wife as an example. My wife is a professor in the College of Veterinary Medicine here in Ithaca and at Weill Cornell Medical College. She has several federal grants and also a lab in each city. And I'm not sure exactly how many people today are working in her lab. It's around 20 altogether, distributed between the cities. And she goes back and forth, and the way she facilitates that is not only her own trip, and not only occasionally bringing folks back and forth, but Ken, just as you've wisely suggested, she has a video conference basically every other day in both directions, so that people can not only look at each other, but share data, talk about experimental results, experimental design, and so on. And she's just one example of many people who are using technology to help make that connection.
Yeah. I think it's powerful. But I guess my question is, from my view, the last century was the age of the computer, mankind, but now this really might be the age where research, fundamental research in biology, can really be for the betterment of mankind in a major way. So I guess my question with these connections with the upstate, the downstate, how is it that, what do we hope to learn? What are the sort of things that we can probably do with this enabling technology and these connections with the medical system?
This is terrific how you put the question, because that combination of understanding more about life and health and disease, life processes and health and disease, and the enormous potential of information technology to sort out some of that information, a torrent of information that's come out of genome.
We're getting handled.
We are getting handled, exactly. So I think these things are going to come together in a way where we'll understand fundamental things and their application to life. So I think technology is going to play a big role, especially computational biology. And I want to pick up on something you asked me that I failed to answer before, Ken. In Qatar, in Doha, where we have the first American medical school to give its MD overseas. not only to break those barriers between biology and some sciences that were considered unrelated, like physics, and very, very basic aspects of the physical sciences, but also to break international boundaries and cultural boundaries. And technology is also used to connect the Weill Cornell Medical College in New York City with Qatar, and to connect professors in Ithaca with Weill Cornell Medical College in Qatar.
Yeah.
So the technology is facilitating the human-to-human interaction and instruction and discovery of life processes in health and disease.
Right.
I'm Dr. Benasser, and my lab makes ears. The invention that we've discovered is a way to print living cells in a material that can be used to reconstruct tissues in the body. My laboratory is interested in regenerating cartilage wherever it's found in the body. The process starts with a scan of an ear. We sit someone down in a chair, and we have a camera that spins around their head and takes a 3D image of their head. We then can very precisely map out the topology of the ear. The next kind of key step is developing the ink for this printer. This ink is actually a living ink. It contains living cells. It's alive when we put it into the printer. It's alive when it comes out of the printer. The real power of the printing technique is that it can be used to make geometries that you just can't make with any other technique. You can make parts with holes in them. We can layer and cover and put different cells next to each other to create really the complex organs that make up our bodies. And after 2 months in an incubator, the tissue fills in and looks white, just like real cartilage. The implants that we're making are not rubber or plastic. They are alive. They grow inside the body or out. And this has a whole host of advantages over conventional technology. The body accepts these materials like it's part of the body because it is. Our long-term goals are to change the way that clinicians practice, to give them the next generation of implants that will be more successful, more like real tissue that will last in the body for decades.
And how does this fit with the founder's vision? It seems like this is both practical, since people make it very much better, but very theoretical. I mean, it's just a computational biology. It's extremely compute intensive.
It is. And the one extra ingredient that I hope will always remain there, that I think was also part of the founder's vision, is not to forget the humanities and the liberal sciences, liberal arts rather. And, you know, for example, ethics.
Right.
When we go to a physician, how we hope that the physician has a very thorough grounding in the ethics of the doctor-patient relationship and so on. And I'm very proud of the fact, for example, at Weill Cornell Medical College, they have a serious ethics curriculum as part of the MD curriculum. So I think adding in that humanistic philosophical discipline with the epistemology of science, with the practical aspects that you talked about and the basic aspects, then you have, I think, the entire realization of the founder's vision in just in life sciences alone, and multiply that by the other areas of the university.
Well, you know, speaking of humanities, that's a whole big important area. For example, to what extent does humanities research contribute to the sort of ongoing soul of Cornell, and also to what extent does just the beauty of the place, I mean, just the sort of general the general, you know, how does that really add to the founder's vision? How does that add to everybody's experience today, and I assume to go on to the future?
Well, this is a subject you may know very, very dear to my heart. We came from a discussion about science and even medicine, and let me just say, as a doc, as a physician and scientist, that of course I believe in the power of science, but the greatest problems we have in this world will not be solved by science alone. In medical problems, for example, vaccines, a solution to a medical issue, as you know, one of the issues is developing the vaccine.
Right.
The other issue is gaining acceptance of it. And so cultural aspects really make a huge difference. And so I think that it's very, very important to remember the humanities in their instrumental role with the sciences, but just as important is their significance as a way of understanding in their own right Right? Now people may think, well, history, what's the point of history? You can't relive those things. But we can understand them differently. We can understand them better. And one of the things that I've been learning about in the last couple of years, which has been fascinating, is the tremendous impact of training and education in the humanities, even on national security. Does that sound crazy? No. If you think about a general talking about so-called winning the hearts and minds of the public in a country in which we're having a military struggle, hearts and minds, that means culture, religion, languages, things like that. And so I think whatever way you slice it, value in their own right, applicability to the sciences, applicability to foreign policy and national security, the humanities are critical. And the fact that they're alive and well and developing in Cornell, and that we're on the street right now hiring humanists for the faculty, I'm so proud of that. I think Ezra, if he were here now, would be proud of it too.
Well, that's the point. I think he did have a vision of reaching out. Yep. Somehow, as a land grant, we were helping people.
Yep.
Studying art at Cornell has really let me not only pursue my more creative passions, but also my passion for learning, which is something that really has carried me this far in the educational system already. So in addition to all my studio classes like painting, drawing, photography, sculpture, all the fun stuff, I also get to take the fun academics. So I've been taking, Chinese language courses. I've been studying the classics like the Greek comedies and the Roman tragedies, and it's been really fun. I've been able to get a liberal arts as well as a fine arts education.
I'm not sure what I learned from them, but I learned by being around them of making art.
I came here in 1980 to go to graduate school, and I studied with A.R. Emmons, Robert Morgan, Ken McLean, Phyllis Janowitz in poetry, and Alison Lurie actually in fiction, who was teaching the poetry workshop. It was a wonderful experience for me and really a life-changing one.
President Skorton, in the age of David,
I like it better, thanks.
In the age of nanotechnology, we hear a lot about it, and it's not so much all the possibilities of it as how does this again envision going boldly into new areas that are both theoretical and to some extent nanotechnology can be very applied. They're just plain things they can make you couldn't make before. How does that fit in with the founder's vision?
I love how you describe that, because nanotechnology, I think a lot of people think only about the applications and think about, well, I can make something very small, a particle or two, a material based on those things. And I think that applicability and the practical ramifications of it are, of course, very important. And isn't that what catches the public's attention and imagination? But we wouldn't have gotten there except for the curiosity of someone to understand, does nature work the same at that scale as it does at a larger scale? If so, fine. If not, why not? And in what ways does it differ? And one of the things, again, that I think Ezra would be proud of if he were here, first of all, if he were here sitting in this studio today, he'd be amazed by the technology just that we're using for this interview. But I think he'd be proud of the fact that we have physicists and others understanding the basic aspects of things that small, if I can put it that way, as well as dreaming of the applications. It's fantastic.
If you take a plastic and you introduce a ceramic or an inorganic to make a composite out of it, you can make it to be stiffer, but at the same time you make it to be easier to break. You make it more brittle, as we say. In nanocomposites, you can actually have both. Well, the applications can be really very broad. One can think of these materials as alternatives for automotive applications.
We believe that the applied sciences challenge that the mayor has given to the world, which we have responded to, is the right idea at the right time. In the 21st century, the technology sector is shifting from technology for its own sake to technology in the service of business and industry. The Cornell and Technion have developed a strategic alignment because of many, many things that we have in common. As you heard the mayor recite, Cornell faculty and alumni have been responsible for approximately 2,600 companies as a conservative estimate just in the last 5 years that employ more than 34,000 people.
As you heard the mayor said, the Technion has changed the economy of Israel. Technion graduates are now leading the high-tech economy. There are more startup companies in Israel than in the entire European continent in absolute numbers. Every major corporation have an R&D center within 15 minutes drive from the Technion, including Apple, that just announced that they are going to open their R&D center in the vicinity of the Technion. Combining the two traditions, the Cornell and Technion, will bring, I believe, such a level of excellence to the Roosevelt Island that it will catalyze and change the economy of the city. We believe that the new campus will be a magnet that will allow us to attract high-tech companies, entrepreneurs, VC groups, and excellent faculty to this new campus. We envision a ring of companies around the campus that will allow us both technology transfer and mentoring of students by the industry. And this new interaction between industry and academia will be something which will be innovative and new.
We estimate conservatively the creation of 30,000 permanent jobs from spin-offs, from licensing of intellectual property, and for growth of existing business. What are the ingredients for success? Well, of course, we need what is called thought leadership, envisioning and experimenting with the future, and of course, technology innovation. And we sorely need, and we believe we have found the right city for entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I want to make a very important point. We are not so naive as to think that one single campus is going to create all of these jobs by itself. Our idea is to blend in, as I mentioned, other aspects of the city that are currently so active and successful, and to come together with the already existing and flourishing ecosystem in this city, and help to add one more piece to the puzzle to make it a complete picture. But the part of the picture that the mayor challenged us to do is to expand the talent pool. Well, first we need to attract the most outstanding and diverse students to New York City. And Cornell and Technion and the many other excellent educational institutions in this city will attract them aplenty. Secondly, we need to utilize all the powers in our disposal to develop and hone their skills, not only in technology, but in the related business skills that are necessary to complete that circle. Very importantly, we need to retain them in New York City, as many as possible for as long as possible, and by this active positive feedback loop, create that expanded talent pool that the mayor has wisely called for.
We plan on having 2 new academic degrees, Master of Applied Sciences, a dual degree between Cornell and the Technion, and a PhD, a dual degree between Technion and Cornell. These will be new degrees, again emphasizing engineering on one hand and entrepreneurship spirit on the other. In addition to that, there will be the traditional academic degrees on campus, like a master and a PhD in more traditional fields. We decided to go away from the traditional structure of a university. Instead of having faculties, we are going to have hubs. And the hubs will be flexible. You can see now the first 3 hubs that we envision on Roosevelt Island. The Healthier Life Hub, the Connective Media Hub, and the Built Environment Hub. Computer science, electrical engineering, information sciences, economics, and business will be the common theme of all 3 hubs. But each of them will interact with specific, more traditional fields. And these hubs will be flexible. In 5 years, they may be different, and these hubs will be interacting with the traditional industries outside Roosevelt Island. like with the advertisement, entertainment, finance, publishing, the Connective Media Hub. We envision it as an open, very flexible system that will build around themes rather than around traditional fields of expertise.
I want to tell you some of the attributes that we have designed into the plan. Once again, taking a challenge from the mayor and from the way this city looks at how we should build things and develop things. This campus will be an environmental standard bearer that will make people in the city of New York and around the country proud. It will have open and welcoming public spaces, and as I mentioned to you, will be inclusive and not exclusive. It will be both a campus and a community.
One question for you is, do you ever miss being a cardiologist? You ever miss, you feel pressure, you ever get down, or does it work hard in your job?
Those are two different questions. The cardiology part, I do miss. The only thing I miss about being president, and I began to miss it when I was president in Iowa, I miss a big part of the lives of those hundreds of families with whom I worked on. Teenagers and adults, especially young adults, with inborn heart disease. That's the kind of cardiology I practice.
Oh, is that right?
I still do an occasional, very rare consultation up here in Ithaca and down at Cornell. And I have a periodic teaching conference at the medical college where one of the faculty there, Dr. Gina Luraca, and I will bring a case and discuss it with trainees and also with physicians from the community. So I do miss that. I really do miss it. In terms of the stresses and pressures of the job, what really gets to me more than anything else, it's not the day-to-day grind, it's not the financial issues that we have to deal with, all that's stressful. What gets me are things that affect the individual person's life. So the fact that we reduced the staff workforce so much, that we had layoffs at Cornell, every one of those actions made it hard for a family, hard for a person, for his or her emotions, and for the families and economics. That was very hard. Emotionally for me. The regular job itself is a fabulous job. I can't imagine a better job than being university president. I get to meet all kinds of people. You and I would have met each other probably, except that you wanted an interview with bureaucrat. You must have run out of interesting people to talk to.
I want to be with university president.
Bureaucrat. So I have a chance to meet people with whom I would not have shared a few minutes like we are today. I had a chance to work with bright young people who keep me on their toes, on my toes rather, very, very much so. And how about this gorgeous environment?
It's cute.
Just unbelievable.
The reason I actually do think you're very influential is, in the State of the Union message, you're talking about certain things for students to be able to have access to the university. Times are changing in the United States. It's a big deal. The second thing, globalization of education. So some of those, in fact, some of those thrusts are really, really, from my point of view, major and consequential. So anyway.
Well, if we can get it done. One thing is talking about it. Everyone is getting it done. If it gets done, it's going to be the interaction between us that gets it done. Well, what I mean by that is the community here, on campus and off campus, we have to buy into those values, which I believe that they do.
Yeah.
And we'll have to decide that we're going to turn the ship in a direction, focus on our people, focus on allowing people to be successful. And I think that means access. It means faculty renewal. Particularly, I'm worried about the humanities for reasons you may know. The country doesn't tend to fund that as vigorously as it has funded science. Globalization, I think, is so important.
That's ironic. Like some of the toughest problems the world has said are actually these problems with the art side. Making it happen, getting the medicine out there like you did.
Absolutely. You're totally right from my perspective.
In fact, please feel free to interrupt me anytime with wild and uncontrollable applause, especially if it's about me. That would be great. So let's take a breath and look forward. When our university will be celebrating its 150th birthday, let me share my vision for the Cornell of 2015 and beyond. First, we will keep our focus on access. We were a prototypical opportunity university, making good on Ezra Cornell's promise. Even in the darkest days of the Great Recession, we kept our promise of need-blind admissions and need-based undergraduate financial aid, so the talented students from all backgrounds could continue to afford Cornell and to dream of and achieve this education based only on ability, not on means. Second, we will set the standard for globalization of higher education, sharing our knowledge and tapping the insights of the best minds the world over. Beginning with its founding and matriculation of its first students, Cornell has been international in scope, international in aspiration. Students from Canada, England, Russia, and Brazil were enrolled in our first classes, and by the early 1900s, students from China were a significant presence on this campus. Over the decades, Cornell has become a globally respected institution of learning, of discovery, and creativity. The faculty, staff, and students of Cornell have acted as if Cornell were, as Frank Rhodes has said, the land-grant institution to the world. The need for programs such as these are likely to increase, not decrease, as global agriculture is threatened by climate change and food shortages become even more frequent and devastating, particularly in already impoverished regions of the world. Our China and Asia Pacific Studies major in the College of Arts and Sciences provides a truly exceptional education in U.S.-China relations including 4 years of intensive Chinese language study. We offer dual and joint degree programs with excellent international universities in Singapore through the School of Hotel Administration, in India through the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, in Europe through the Cornell Law School. And graduates of our Weill Cornell Medical College campus in Qatar, who receive Cornell MD degrees, have demonstrated their ability to compete successfully for the best residencies and research fellowships at some of the finest medical institutions in the U.S. as well as in Qatar. But the world of international studies and international relations is not standing still, and Cornell must change with it. Without a clear and strategic vision of our international role, Cornell faculty, students, and staff risk becoming less globally relevant at just the time where there are so many problems without passports, outlining what I see as next steps to ensure that Cornell remains not only the world's land-grant university, but also a university where globalization pervades our education, research, and scholarship, our outreach, and most importantly, our view of our place in the world.
Down where the waving willows 'neath the sunbeam smile, shadowed o'er the murmuring waters, dwelt sweet Annie Lyle, pure as the forest. Sweet came the hallowed chiming of the Sabbath bell, born on the morning breeze.
We will step up to the challenge of public engagement, bringing the talents of our faculty, students, staff,
and research and outreach to the greater society as we have never done before. As you know, we have a long and very productive and very impressive history of outreach, particularly but not only in our contract colleges and through Cornell Cooperative Extension and through the public service and service learning in which so many of our students engage. To make public engagement a distinctive feature of a Cornell education, and to strongly, and this is very important, connect public engagement to the on-campus research and educational strengths of Cornell. Now, fourth and most important in my vision, and the underpinning for excellence, we will renew our faculty. Distinguished faculty members define the quality of the educational experience students gain here, and why, despite the difficult economy, our graduates continue to do well in the job market and in acceptances to graduate and professional schools. We have established a $100 million faculty renewal initiative to ensure that the faculty of the future will be ready to carry Cornell forward. I believe we must continue to recruit outstanding humanists as part of the next generation faculty on this campus. When Cornell first opened its doors to students nearly 150 years ago, our university was still unfinished. Ezra Cornell, roused from a sickbed for the occasion, made no apology. "I hope we have laid the foundation," he said, "of an institution which shall become practical with liberal education, which shall fit the youth of our country for the professions, the farms, the mines, the manufactories, for the investigations of science, and for mastering all the practical questions of life with success and honor." And he added, "It is a commencement we now have in hand. Our university is still not finished. I see us honoring our heritage as an opportunity university by ensuring that all students, undergraduate, graduate, professional, international, and economically disadvantaged, can complete their degrees without crushing debt. I see us as a university with global impact and global reach, whose graduates in the fullest sense are citizens of their own countries and citizens of the world. I see us leading the way in essential fields of knowledge and emerging interdisciplinary areas, and with revitalized and expanded public engagement, accelerating innovation and economic growth in Ithaca, New York City, New York State, and the world. And I see us renewing our faculty with accomplished and innovative new researchers and scholars and thought leaders who will contribute to the advancement of knowledge. Then, now, always Cornell. Just as it was on that first opening day, it is a commencement we now have in hand. Let us begin anew. Thank you.
Really hope and pray that the work we do in New Orleans, the combination of mobilizing committed civic leaders, the best of advanced technology, and an interdisciplinary planning and design team from not one great university, but 7 great universities, will result in solutions to low-lying waterfront communities like New Orleans, which exist all over the world.
Well, President David, I wondered if you could conclude this or wrap it up, or maybe there's some topic I've left out, but we just have another 3-4 minutes, and I wondered if you could have some final words.
Well, first of all, I'll tell you again how much I appreciate having a chance to do this and how important this kind of thing is that you're doing, outreach, and a chance to engage people and thinking about something maybe a little bit different from time to time. So I congratulate you on this.
Thank you.
I would say, I would end by going where you started, that one of the beautiful things about universities, for all the shellacking that we've taken in the last years about the cost of higher education, which is surely a problem, and about whether or not people are getting value for that cost, which is surely a consideration. For all those things, the stability of that basic combination of discovery, curiosity, thirst for knowledge, it sounds so corny, but it really is true. It's alive and well on this campus, approaching 150 years of excellence in existence. I think those values haven't changed since 1865. And I'll ask you a question, Dan. Isn't it exciting, satisfying to be a part of something where the basic values, the first principles, have staying power and allow us to have some of the same emotions maybe that someone else had here in 1865 on this same ground in this same place? I think that's exciting.
Absolutely remarkable. And I mean, the generation after generation reaffirming those values, reinventing them, seeing them a different way, but really pretty much staying with it. Great intellectual curiosity, great applied.
Yep.
As you say, the humanities mix with the sciences is it's a very diverse campus. All the different colleges. It's really quite the environment.
Yep. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure, Ken.
All right, I know.
3, 2, engine ignition, and liftoff of the Delta II rocket with the Mars Exploration Rover.
Technology, the discipline to understand and build nanometer-sized devices, enables new ways of understanding cancer and new potential cancer remedies. Scientists using nanotechnology can build new microscopic equipment at the cellular level, the same size as human cells. With this technology, scientists and doctors should be able to detect cancer early and also to kill cancer cells. With these 10 nanometer nanobots, as some call them, treatment regimens can be designed for each individual's conditions, including genetic and disease. Based on advanced computer chip fabrication, nanoarrays are many orders of magnitude more precise and less costly than today's technology. Nanobots can be linked to antibodies that bind with specific tumor cells. After the cancer cell binding, simple infrared light can kill the cancer cells, but not the neighboring healthy cells. Scientists are designing specialized nanobots, which actively seek and kill cancer cells. This stunning technology can be directed at precise drug delivery and better fMRI, PET, and other medical images. Such images can provide proof of cancer cell death within hours.
Personal 3D printer, like the way people have printers now, we want everyone to have a 3D printer the same way.
Let's begin.
Well, it's pretty awesome. So I was an intern there. I was their winter intern, and I actually learned a lot of stuff. It's a lot of fun people. You just saw Pixel.
View this Startup Career Fair as the first step toward a whole new era for Cornell University and for New York City. I'd like to really thank the over 40 startup companies that are here. We are delighted to have you here, and from the energy in this room, it's pretty obvious so are the students.
Let's begin.
Movie.tv. We're the best way to watch and discover web video.
I think that architecture has always been collaborative. It takes many people with diverse sets of expertise to put a building together. What I'm bringing to the table that's new is there might be a cell biologist and a systems engineer and a material scientist or a mathematician on board as well. I'm very interested in issues of sustainability, how our buildings can essentially act as organisms within their environment. I use digital tools to produce form and to visualize complex data sets or extract and abstract them into other architectural scenarios. My biggest research project currently is called eSkin, which is in collaboration with a number of scientists, and the project team is looking to nature for design models, namely cell biology, and extracting that into the realm of materials and complex geometries. And we're interested in practical parameters such as how the skin will react to heat, light, and moisture. We're also very interested in how this building skin could respond and adapt to us as inhabitants within various spaces. It really brings together our skills in computation and visualization to extract behaviors and principles found in nature into materials design and finally to the scale of architecture. I really essentially wear three integrated hats, from my teaching to research to my practice work, and I really see them always feeding each other. My teaching is very much integrated with my research. Right now I'm teaching a course called Digital Ceramics, where we're looking at the integration of digital tooling and the complexity that comes with working with clay. Frequently I'll involve students. For example, last summer I was commissioned by the American Philosophical Society Museum to design, fabricate, and build a greenhouse pavilion. And for students to have the chance to learn how a project is taken from initial concept to being on site building and watching this thing go up not only was thrilling for me, but just, you know, man, they were so excited.
It's called a mini Baja car. It's a SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, sponsored event.
We start in the fall semester and design a complete car, and starting in the spring semester, usually in January, we build and fabricate the entire car.
So that's the car. Danny made a nice rendering of it for the design report. 32 days till the car is finished, so that's about a month things. And then 45 days until we're at competition.
And the final day is a 4-hour endurance race against all the other teams at once.
I hesitate to say we're going to win because I don't want to jinx it, but I think in the first competition in Alabama, we have a very high probability of being top 3.
So right now we're actually getting ready to be completely done with the car.
Competitions are serious game time. There's definitely not a lot of relaxing.
Listen up. If you are not with Cornell or a Bay leader, please exit the design tent.
Every single event we are capable of a top 10 finish in this year, and most of them were capable of a top 3 finish. And from my experience, if you can get top 10 in like all the dynamic events design, things like that, and going into endurance, you'll definitely be in the top 3, and it all comes down to that race, what place you can get.
2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 15 minutes left. Your current top 10 is number 27, Oregon State, number 41, Pittsburgh State, number 38, Northeastern University, number 10, Cornell.
And your overall winner in first place, $1,000 award, is car number 10, Cornell.
Is that this inequality is not inevitable, and that we are paying a very high price for this inequality, both for our economy and more broadly for our society. I think most Americans don't realize the extent to which inequality has grown in the United States. Watching inequality grow is like watching grass grow. It happens very slowly, although in recent years you can see it almost year by year. But over a number of years it accumulates. So just to give you a few numbers, the share of the national income that goes to the top 1% has doubled since 1980. It's now around 20%. 1 out of $5 goes to the top 1%. The share that goes to the top 1/10 of 1% has tripled since 1980. Inequality in the United States has many dimensions. It affects every aspect of individuals' lives: insecurity, life expectancy. People at the bottom have a shorter life expectancy than people at the top. A dimension that's even more dramatic than income inequality is wealth inequality. The top 1% has about 40% of all the wealth. And things have been getting much worse.
Songa.
The stability of that basic combination of discovery, curiosity, thirst for knowledge. It's alive and well on this campus, approaching 150 years of excellence in existence. Those values haven't changed since 1865.